It is week 11, if you can believe it. Welcome to the show. I'm Ron Burke. Glad to have you on Pro Football Now. November and December is when the contenders must separate from the pretenders in the NFL. Call it Separation Nation. And while the Colts, for example, still may be the second best team in the league, they're showing some slippage this last couple of weeks. We'll get into that discussion and more with our trio of analysts. With me in Philadelphia, as always, is Brian Baldinger. Baldy. In the nation's capital, the good doctor, the DOC, Doc Walker. And from Dallas, courtesy of Bodog Football, Tim Brown. Gentlemen, to set the stage, we talk about the Colts. 2 weeks ago, we're looking at this team like it's right there with the Patriots. In the fourth quarter of that game, Baldy, they were beating the Patriots. So what happened so drastically for the Colts that now they got 6 picks last week from Peyton Manning? Now they look like a team that is stumbling.
Well, I mean, they ran into the best team in football in New England, and they played a great 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, so they got that win. They went on the road in bad weather. They had an awful lot of turnovers, a lot of interceptions, obviously. I think you're starting to see just the slippage due to all the injuries. I mean, you just can't replace Marvin Harrison and Dallas Clark, and Dwight Freeney. I mean, those are the cornerstones of a franchise that have been, Super Bowl winners and deep in the playoffs. So I think we've seen some slippage because the numbers of guys that have been hurt.
Yeah, you mentioned those guys, Freeney, Rob Morris. You go back to the middle linebacker injury, done for the year. Booker McFarland out for the year. Harrison is out. And, but this team is certainly talented, talent-laden. And, Doc, let me ask you, when you look at, if you can go back to the fourth quarter, the turning point of that fourth quarter against the Patriots, do you think there is a hangover effect? I mean, you played enough games to know what that's like and how that comes into play for a team, even a team as capable and as talented as the Colts.
No, I think in lieu of the injuries, if you play well and had yourself in a position to win, you recognize that, and you give the opponent its respect. San Diego, I looked at it and thought they are a Vinatieri field goal away from winning the ball game, despite all that went wrong. It reminded me of Dallas and Buffalo, and they pulled that one off. So I still think they're high quality. They just got to go fight and get one. They need a win.
Before we go to Tim, let's listen to Tony Dungy talking about what his team's mindset has to be here, as it is now 7-2 with 2 consecutive losses.
It really doesn't matter who's not in the game, and that's what you've got to understand. It's who's in the game, and they've got to do their job. And so I don't think we're going to get caught up in all that. I think we're going to just play and do what we should do.
Hey, Tim, as members of the media and as fans as well, you look at a team situation like the Colts, and we recognize injuries exist, and we can talk about those things in any particular form. And I wonder, as a player, you see the same things we see. How difficult is it to not bring up injuries in a situation like this because it'll make you look weak or make it look like you're making excuses?
Well, it's very tough, and what you heard from Tony Dungy is what the players call coach speak. I mean, that's what he has to say. He has to say that in that situation. Otherwise, it's going to be looked at exactly what you're saying as, they have a crutch. Oh, they're falling back on the fact that they have injuries. But, look, man, when you have the kind of players out that they have, it's just impossible to go out and be the same team that you want to be. I mean, you think you can do the same plays, but you can't do it if you don't have Dallas Clark and Marvin Harrison and even Gonzalez in. I mean, it's impossible for them to be as effective as they want to be.
So, Tim, let me ask you this. You look at the Colts, and I assume you, like everybody else, thought they were the second-best team in the league going into this past weekend. Are they still the second-best team, in your opinion, in light of the situation they have with limited, at least in terms of personnel, limited firepower on the field?
No. Zach, just because of their limitability on the field at this point, you cannot, I cannot have them as a second-best team. I think Pittsburgh is a better team, Dallas, Green Bay. You got to have all your weapons in the NFL. I mean, the stars, there's a reason why guys get paid a lot of money, and when your stars are not out there, I mean, your team is going to suffer, and certainly they're going to miss having Freeney coming off that out the end. I know Simeon Rice is there, and he's supposed to be the same kind of guy, but what Freeney brings to the table is the excitement, the enthusiasm. And I played with Simeon for a year, and he's good coming off the edge, but he's not an excitable guy. He's not going to be high-fiving and jumping around like you see Freeney doing.
Yeah, the Colts at 7-2 will host the Chiefs this weekend. Kansas City at 4-5. And Baldy, Tim mentioned the Packers in that mix of teams that are certainly near the top of the elite ranks. You saw the Packers last week. You did that game for Fox. You're going to do the game this weekend as well. Packers in Carolina is my memory. Right. Okay, I'm not as old as I thought I was.
You got the schedule.
Are the Packers maybe the second-best team in the league right now to New England? Can we say that?
They're on
right
a collision course to play Dallas in 2 weeks right now. And if they're both 10-1 at that time or 11-1, that's going to be some game of the magnitude that New England, Indianapolis was.
Right.
They really impressed me last week. The missing component to this team the first half of the season was could they find and develop a running game? This Ryan Grant from Tim's alma mater there, Notre Dame, did a lot of research. He had one really good year there before Julius Jones kind of took over. This guy is a legitimate running back. He may not be Julius Jones or Marion Barber, but he gives the Packers the threat of a running game, and he's a good player. And so now with Brett Favre with balance, that passing game is explosive. Yeah. I mean, it is that those wide receivers are on a launching pad. And Favre is throwing the ball as well as he ever has right now. They can score points, and they're going to be tough in the playoffs.
Let's look at what you're talking about, Baldy, because the Packers' offense has been dynamite this season, to say the least. Of course, the trigger man there is Brett Favre, and if you've watched him even a couple of times or so this season, you know what he has done in terms of resurrecting his high level of ability this year. And as we look at these particular numbers related to the Packers, Doc, Baldy talked about Ryan Grant in particular. Overall, though, the Packers have struggled to run the football. You look at their per-carry average, it's 3.4. They've run Deshaun Wynn out there. They've had Brandon Jackson, Vernon Morency. But even in the midst of those struggles, this team has lost only one football game. What does that speak to in terms of its strength and the things that the Packers can really rest their laurels on? Because the running game, on balance, has not been what it is the last couple of weeks with Ryan Grant.
No, but their defense has a chance to really be good, and their corners, I think, give him a chance to play really good playoff football. When you win, you get better. Maybe you think you're better than you are. They've got a great home field advantage. I thought it was really a premium move for them to win on the road. I would question them on the road. So when they get those wins, it just gets better for them. It reminds me back in the day, you know, when the Purple People Eaters were rolling and the Packers. If they get you in Lambeau with a good team, that's a 3-point advantage before kickoff.
Hey, Tim, let me ask you before we say so long to you for this week. You look at the Packers receivers in particular, Greg Jennings, you have Jones also, and when you look at these guys, coming into the season, nobody was saying these guys were the end-all. But when you look at Favre really through two incarnations of sorts, when he had Freeman before and Brooks before, and now with these new guys, it's really unique to see a quarterback be able to essentially turn over that position and have those guys play at such a high level.
Well, you know, I often say that if you're going to have a great offensive team, you either got to have great receivers or a great quarterback. And in this case, the Packers have a great quarterback. And this is a guy with his enthusiasm for the game. I mean, it has to be infectious out there. I mean, these players, these receivers have to be all into what Brett Favre is doing. And I think you see that in their play. Because these are just, I don't want to say they're just guys because they're in the NFL, so it means they're more than just guys. But no one, when you looked at them, like you said, Ron, at the beginning of the year, you didn't say, oh, Jennings is going to light it up, or Jones is going to, you didn't say that. Even Driver, you know, who was a late-round draft pick, I believe. So, I mean, these are guys who are just playing great football, and they're playing at the level of their quarterback, and that's what you need if you're going to be an explosive offense, and certainly that's what they're showing this year.
All right, Tim, as always, it's a pleasure. We say goodbye to you now, and for more of Tim's analysis and insight into the pro game, visit BulldogFootball.net. Tim, we'll see you again next week, buddy.
All right, guys, take care.
And with that, we take our first break of the program. A little later.